The Baylor Bears are the reigning champs of the college basketball world. 20 years ago, Matt Sayman hoped that he and the rest of the Baylor University basketball team would be the ones cutting down the nets at the end of March Madness. Instead, their hoop dreams were ruined by a raging scandal.
Matt Sayman dedicated himself to basketball in the 4th grade. 12 years later, as a rising senior at Baylor, his dream was coming true.
All the time and effort and investment is really paying off in a big way. And it really looked like playing in the championship was going to happen for us. And at that point, one of my professors called me and said, "Matt, you need to turn on the TV right now."
Matt soon learned that one of his teammates had murdered another one, shattering 2 families and the team's championship dream. He recounts how God built them back in his book, The Leftovers.
Matt Sayman joins us now via Skype. Matt, welcome to the 700 Club.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. Well, let's get started. By the end of your junior year at Baylor in 2003, the basketball team was expected to have a really awesome season. What happened that summer to change all of that?
Yeah, we had some really talented younger players that were going to be future pros, and then seniors like myself that were really solid role players and would lead well. And I just got a call from a professor on a Friday afternoon saying, "What's going on with your team?" And I didn't think anything of it. He said, "No, you need to turn on the news right now." And sure enough, I saw this story unfold right before me, along with everybody else, I feel like, in the country. And one of my teammates had shot and killed one of my other teammates. And the coaching staff that I had played for 3 years, turns out they're doing a lot of things wrong. And over the span of 2 months, we lost 10 teammates, our entire coaching staff, and what seemed like the future of our program.
Wow. Well, what were some of the consequences for the team, and how did you personally handle all of it?
So Scott Drew came in as a 32-year-old to take over our team. We only had 6 scholarship players, which, to put it in perspective, Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma State, who we'd be playing, they have 13 scholarship players, and they're all really, really good. And Baylor also determined, and the NCAA determined, that we wouldn't be allowed to play in postseason. So going into my senior year, 6 players, new coaching staff, and even if we had been really good, we wouldn't have been allowed to play in March Madness, which is the goal. It's the dream of every college player, is to get to be on that stage. That was a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, definitely. Well, after the scandal, several top players actually transferred, but you chose to stay and play for your new coach, Scott Drew. What was that season like for you, playing for a new coach?
Well, we started off losing to teams that we usually would beat. And I had a hard time, for the first time in my playing career, I had a hard time trusting and believing in my coaches. I'd been taught growing up to believe in your coaches and what they say and do your very, very best. And I felt guarded, and I had adopted some off-court habits. When I realized that basketball, from a young age, basketball had really been the control in my life, what I worshiped in a sense, and all my hope was in the game. When that fell apart, I threw myself into this different lifestyle, and it was amazing how quickly those habits took hold of me. Well, that year was difficult, to say the least, and we were losing to a lot of teams that we normally would beat. There's one game in particular where we were down 20, and the walk-ons, our 5 walk-ons, went in. They played hard. When the scholarship players went back in, the few people left in the Farrell Center at that point where we played booed us coming back in the game, and the walk-ons leaving. And I was very upset that night and almost quit. But there is a moment in that season where we band together, and there was a lot of miracles that happened.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what were the years like for you after graduation?
Yeah, so even though we ended up doing some amazing things in the Big 12 and won some games that nobody thought we should have won, and we were competitive, I went and played in Iceland in my for pro basketball, my very first practice. one of my teammates said, "Where'd you play?" And I said, "Baylor. You know, that's Big 12." I kind of thought I was a big deal. And he looked at me with a puzzled look and he said, "Don't they kill people there?" I mean, that story of what had happened to us and, and the leftovers in 2003, 4, it followed me. Uh, Unfortunately, so did my bad habits. And I went on about a 9-year journey of being angry, being frustrated, questioning why those things had happened to my teammates, myself, and our university all those years ago. And I was just in this really bad place.
Well, let's talk about that. On your 30th birthday, you were alone in your apartment with a 6-pack by your side. What happened next?
Yeah, I'd had these questions of, is this really all there is? I mean, I'd grown up being a good person and I had some good habits and I worked really, really hard and I tried to be what other people thought was, a morally good person. And how could life be like this? I walked into a church and I filled out a visitor card. On that card, I said, "I have questions and I'm angry." And I went to that, I got to meet with that pastor a few weeks later, told him the story, just kind of like you and I have been talking right now. And I said, "I don't understand why I'm in this position that I'm in." He said, "Matt, you have to give up control." And I realized in that moment that at the age of 21, when basketball went bad, I took control of my life. But I didn't realize how much I would actually lose control of it. And so I surrendered that day and gave up control. And the cool thing is God's plans are so much greater. The lady that actually helped me to get my meeting with that pastor, we've been married now for 9 years.
Wow.
So I just went into that church to vent. But
Yeah.
God had my wife waiting for me there.
That is awesome. Such an amazing transformational story. Well, today you got a different story. You are the head coach of a Christian school. What are some of the values that you try to instill in your players that you've learned from your college experience?
Oh, great question. So I work at Grapevine Faith Christian School. I love this place and the people here, the community here is great, but we have to be careful. I see a lot of similarities with these kids as I did with myself. And academics are good. Basketball is good, but it can't be God of your life. And we have to keep the main thing every day. And even though there's been this dramatic life change, I have to remember that. Is that basketball does not define me. And for these young people, basketball, sports, the relationships that they have right now, it doesn't define them. Their relationship with Christ does. And so that's, I would say, besides just all the fun stuff with basketball that we get to do, that's the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a good lesson that we all need to learn. Well, you can find out more by getting Matt's brand new book. It's called The Leftovers, Baylor, Betrayal, and Beyond, and it's available nationwide. Matt, thank you so much for sharing your story and being with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity.